day feels like day 316 of the quarantine. What do you mean? It's only day 6. All right. Fuck. What's up, guys?
Hi.
Welcome to the party. Woohoo! Yeah, that's about the response that I would expect. Yay! Oh man, well, welcome to Second Order Chaos. Welcome to my little slice of the internet. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Not a problem. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No, you guys are
thanks for having all of us.
The first group of people that I really thought to chat about with this. For anybody who is new and just tuning in, this is my own little slice of the internet, and this is Second Order Chaos. I've been doing a lot of streaming lately because of everything going on, and luckily I have already built up all of my effects and things like that, and it's going to prove to be pretty useful here now. We've done a few parts in this series already, just because everybody's going apeshit. So I tried to figure out how many angles can I come at this from. So the first one was for prepping. You know, obviously when things started to start to look dire, people all of a sudden were like, I need toilet paper now. I need to buy 12 gallons of milk that are going to expire in a week and a half. All right, man, that's cool. But
drink a lot of milk.
Yeah,
it's like a lot of milk.
Like
a lot of milk.
Pebbles.
I have my 1 liter of milk right over here, so I want my 1 gallon.
It's like they're mainlining calcium or something. Like, Jesus, got to get my fix.
You mean you aren't?
What's that? Oh, there we go.
That you aren't?
Yeah, no, I'm just mainlining heroin like the old-fashioned way. Whatever.
Because it's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Try it, kids. No, please don't fucking try it. And then after that, so we did that, and then I was like, all right, a lot of the perspectives, because me just being the ignorant American I am, have been in the continental U.S. So I had a panel together for one person from Scotland, one from the Netherlands, one from APAC, and just kind of seeing like how are things different, right? How are things being affected over there? Then we did one on fitness, like working out from home and that kind of thing. And I was having a conversation with my boss the other day, just checking in, seeing how things were going and all that kind of stuff. And it occurred to me, like as I asked him the question, like, how's business? Like, how are projections? How safe is my job right now? Hey, can I get that bonus while we're talking about it? So I've been really big on coming as a lifelong analyst and hands-on keyboard and that kind of thing, of trying to understand the business aspect a little bit more and learning how to speak the business language versus the analyst language. And if I can understand the business better, I'm a little more prepared for the ups and downs. And we are in a huge down right now, which I don't think any of us are prepared for. So my panel this evening, 5 of my favorite humans in the entire world, business owners all, Bryson Bort from Scythe.io, Mr. John Strand from Black Hills InfoSec, Mr. Roach Costume himself, Mr. Hacking Dave Kennedy of Trusted Sec and Binary Defense. I had tried to get Martin on, and he ignored me again. Son of a bitch.
I'll have to tell him about that. That sounds about right.
No, and it's not like I've been busting his balls a little bit because he keeps saying, he's like, yeah, dude, I really want to do your stream. Like, sounds cool. And I said, okay, your boss is are you his boss? Like, or how does that work? Where's the hierarchy?
I mean, technically, I guess, but not, like in like a formal capacity. But like, I mean, pretty much we tell each other what we're doing. So
okay, fair enough. Well, I was like, your boss is going to be on my show. Do you want to come on? And I don't know if it's because I called you his boss that he just ignored me again. That's fine. At this point, I'm going to have to get a neck tattoo just to get his attention.
That's right. You get a neck tattoo, he'll come on. He'll definitely come on the show.
From Trimark Security, Mr. Sean Metcalf, Captain AD himself, and Keith McCammon, right?
Nailed it.
Yeah, hot damn. From the company Red Canary. So yeah, man, let's dive into it. Let's just start from a very basic human perspective, and this is a question for all of you. Answer at will. Talk amongst yourselves. When you when you first figured or had the feeling that this was getting serious, that oh shit, everybody is getting sick, and this is really going to affect bottom lines, from your first human feelings about it, into how it affects your, like, what were your first thoughts?
Well, I can go first, I guess. So about 3 weeks ago, we kind of had an all hands, just kind of talking about contingency planning, what that would look like if we needed to go all remote. If it got really bad. Luckily, Trusted Sec and Binary Defense, we're Trusted Sec primarily is a remote workforce, so that one was relatively easy for us. Binary Defense, though, our security operations center was very much on premise. So we started building out the infrastructure to be able to support it, just in case this got worse and we needed to kind of move everybody off of it, not to hinder any of our businesses. And we also looked at, how far we were booked out, sales that we have closed, all that stuff to kind of take a look at from a business standpoint. If things slow down a bit, what can we do now? One thing I always credit my wife Erin for is that she's very much a forward thinker, and she luckily, we have forecasted out over a year of everybody's salary and payroll. So I know if, from a rainy day perspective, we are fine for at least a year, and if not longer. That's with no work. So we'll be fine, I think, from that perspective. But what's really interesting to see is that while everybody's been working from home, other than a few minor cancellations the first week that all this started really happening, it's been really normal for us as far as job work, still winning deals. Things are still going forward. So it's just keeping everybody motivated, keeping everybody positive, making sure that everybody's taken care of, making sure that our teams are strong, that they're not sick, and their families are healthy. We're doing a lot of games like Quidditch, Quiplash, or Quidditch. Is that what it is? I can't remember the I think it's Quiplish. I don't know. They're playing it in the room the other day. We've been doing all hands meetings and kind of talking through each other and having fun. So it's been working out all right.
I'm sorry. I've just got this vision of all the people at Trusted Sec and Binary being on two separate Quidditch teams. Yeah. And they're like flying around. Like Ohio's like, what the hell, man? So it's okay. We're 6 feet away from each other. Oh!
Yeah. So. All online. So we're all remote, 100%, and we have been for quite a long time. Cut over last week, so that was great, and everybody seems to be doing well.
Like, you first called it Quiplash, and I was like, what's that entail?
Well, it's so I didn't get to play it when they were all playing it, but apparently it's a game you can play like on your phone. So everybody's on a Zoom thing, and they were all kind of like using their phones to play games back and forth with one another. So we've been doing like games like that. A few of our folks have been assigned to kind of what we consider more of a fun committee for remote workforces, kind of helping people out. Is that what it is? Yeah. See, it's like an online game you can play. I wasn't crazy. Thanks, Bryson.
It looks like something my kids would play. I don't know.
Yeah, they liked it. Everybody had a good time. We had a good turnout with it, and we created a work from home animals pick channel in Mattermost, and everybody's loving that. So we're trying to keep everybody positive and make sure everybody's going out as much as they can, to go to the parks. You're still allowed to do that from a social distancing perspective, get outside, but everybody seems to be doing fairly well with everything.
Awesome. I'll throw the question to John next.
So we go back a little bit further. If we're trying to figure out where we're at right now, to probably October of last year. So with running BHIS, like, we could try to run it like a pirate ship where, the people all have a say on what we do and how we do it. And we have a group of 4 that's voted in. And with bonuses, my wife and I are like, yeah, we're just going to give everybody a crap ton of money. And the company, the gang of 4, we call them, they actually voted to not do that, which is kind of weird. They said, no, don't give us more money, give us less. And their logic was they wanted to make sure that we had more money in the company from a rainy day perspective. Which is nice, because that's not a decision I made. It's not a decision my wife made. It's not a decision the finance team made. And it turns out that was kind of prophetic, because the way we are now, we're basically set until October if everything drops dead completely. Like, if we want no more work, we're good till then. So that was really, really good foresight on the part of people that don't run my company on a day-to-day basis. But what happened was it brought it very acute to the forefront of everybody at BHIS because of Wild West Hacking Fest. We had a conference that was coming up, and we needed to do something. I actually called Dave right before I made the decision, and basically, like, dude, I have got nobody on the planet that can kind of understand this situation. And Dave's take on it was, man, you got to do what's right for the attendees. You got to do what's right for your employees. And we pulled the plug, and then we had to switch virtual. So we've been in that kind
And John,
of realm.
I think you were one of the first people to do that, man. I mean, you were well ahead of the curve, looking at that, researching that as you were going and doing it. So, I mean, and your whole thing was on attendees and attendee safety. You were incredible at that.
Well, and I think that we're a bit different in this community, right? I had a bunch of people that were in a bunch of countries, and I knew that their travel schedules were insane. Bryson is absolutely has got to be a carrier. So you're looking at myself. I was in a bunch of countries. You're looking at a bunch of my analysts, and they were in different countries. And we're going to take all of these security professionals, put them in San Diego, shake them with alcohol, and then release them back to the rest of the country. No. We just had to pull it. But no, we're doing pretty good. Everyone's nervous. We've always been a work remote company, so that's not hard for us to do. Our customers, it's an easy transition because that's what we do anyway. So far, I feel cautiously optimistic about the future.
Yeah, that's not something because I don't run a business. I've just always been one of the keyboard monkeys of planning logistically to like, how long can we last with no work at all? That's mostly because I would never be the finance guy. I would never even think about that. But yeah, no, that's awesome. And again, whatever questions I ask right now, feel you can demur from any of them. Like, if you're not comfortable answering, or you don't want to cause panic, or like all of your employees are watching going, all right, come on, say the same thing you told us. Bryson, what about you, man?
You're on mute, dude. There we go.
All right, there we go. Good. None of my hijinks were heard then before while you all were talking. I do want to call out, I mean, again, Dave did it with John, but seriously, like, John put his money where his mouth is. I mean, the rest of us have had to deal with this. John ate it, and he did it for the good of the community. And that was a huge hit. And that was big. So, I mean, again, that's what courage is, right? Doing the hard thing when everybody's looking, or when nobody's looking. And at the end of the day, really having to like take that. So, dude, I love you, brother.
Thanks.
When I look at this, I still don't think we've really seen the worst of it. I mean, we're still just beginning, and we still don't even understand the full situation. And that fear and that unknown, right? At the end of the day, this is something that's invisible. At least better than 100 years ago, we really understand what viruses are, and we understand how they propagate. But we don't really know what we're facing. It really is the tip of the iceberg, and it's going to get worse. And I can't remember who was on the call earlier. They were talking about they listened to the President Trump briefing and how there's finally something different, because he's like, we're going to go back to work. And the reality is, at some point, we are going to have to go back to work. And it's not going to be because this is solved. It's going to be because there's no other choice. I mean, at the end of the day, it's what's happening. This is why they talk about flattening the curve, is we're all trying to figure out a way to build up enough infrastructure and fallback that when this really hits the fan, we as a society have a solution. One of the advantages of being an entrepreneur is I get people telling me what to do all the time. And I got a number of emails from different folks who've given me money who decided to tell me all sorts of great ideas, like raising money or debt in the near term will be quite hard. I am 3 months into trying to raise money, so it's not like I have a choice. Scythe is a growth company. That's what you do. So I can't not try to raise money. I have already seen several investors get spooked because they're worried about the macro market of they expect that all sales are going to be down 20 to 50%. And so he then goes on. He provides a good framework, which is actually useful. So I'm going to share that here. Danny, you can share that with everyone. It's a really cool thing from Sequoia where they talk through different decision matrices around the market. But I think the biggest thing that kind of hit me is, since we're in the middle of this raise, we are not in the same position as Dave of having a great war chest to Scythe. Grim is doing great. I wish I was still working there. That would be fantastic. They're doing well. But we've seen deals slide to the right. We're trying to raise money. We're a growth company. We're trying to get something off the ground. And one of my employees reached out to me, and he was kind of sort of beating around the bush of like, hey, is everything gonna be all right? Are we gonna, am I gonna get paid next week kind of thing? And what we did, and we're going to start instituting this, is we got the whole team together because everybody's already working from home and is remote. And we just did a group coffee in the middle of the day. And we just talked about everything, and everybody got to hear straight from the horse's mouth. Here's what's good. Here's where I'm worried. Here's where we'll know more. And at the end of the day, I think that's the biggest thing that we all have to do as leaders in this community is continue to be honest. But at the same time, somebody is paying attention to the tiller of the pirate ship.
So I want to kind of a couple of quick questions about that. Is in your specific area where you're working right now with Scythe, it seems like this may be something that plays to your advantage because there's a lot of options that people could go with that are astronomically more expensive. Do you think that maybe opens up some opportunities for you at Scythe?
Yeah. So we're the discount bass. That's where we're going there?
Let's go with that because I'm kind of in the same thing with active countermeasures, and that's actually been helping us. If we're looking at like some other vendors, and I don't want to name any names because I don't want to rip on any other companies, but it's kind of different if you're in the product space because I think there are some people that are just drastically overpriced, whether it's network threat hunting or it's in your attack simulation and emulation as well.
John, you rip on vendors so good though. I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't want to, man. I don't want to. I stopped drinking. Wasted Strand is gone. I try to be nice now.
The world likes an equilibrium, so that's where I'm. You get wasted.
I'm not
rice
drinking yet. It's a little bit too early for me, but
it's about balance.
Yeah, well, I had a rough 24 hours, so I get to drink.
I hear you. No, I understand.
Yeah, no, so that actually hasn't been, I don't want to hijack this because that's a longer conversation, but in short, the issue that I have had with Scythe has been folks understanding what we are. We have created a red team product where the market for red team doesn't exist. At the end of the day, there's like a few bucks for people to spend on Cobalt Strike, and there's nothing else. And then there's been this new breach and attack simulation space that's come out in the last 2 years, and that's kind of a completely different thing than us as well. And yeah, they've been able to command 7-digit prices from enterprises where we think that we offer a different solution that does some of those things. They do some things better. And yeah, we don't charge 7 digits. So in short, I haven't seen that opportunity. It's been more a problem of market confusion.
Okay. And then kind of a similar question. I'm taking everything over, but for the consulting firms, honestly, I really feel like on the pen testing side, and Dave and Sean, I'd like to get your impressions on this. I feel like we won against the pen test puppy mills, and Bryson, of course, with Grim. I feel like we won. I feel like we kind of put them to bed, but all of us still somewhat compete with like big 5 consulting firms that still charge way more than we do. How do you think that this is going to impact the consulting space if we're in a situation where now you have like the big 5 consulting firms now have to compete with us? Does that drive prices down for us, or is it just everybody's going to be coming down from astronomical consulting prices down to reality?
I don't think either of those. I think the big 5s are going to continue to charge the rates that they charge. I think that they have their customers that like them and are comfortable with them for the name. I think what you're going to see are the small boutiques are going to die. So all the puppy mills and the small stuff is just going to go away.
I feel, I kind of resonate with that too, and kind of agree with that. And I hope I'm wrong on that. I want to see competition. I want to see more folks that can last a longer time. But one thing I'll say, and I don't know if this is the same for everybody across the board, but we really haven't seen a substantial slowdown yet. Now that can absolutely happen. And I definitely foresee it. But if you look at all of the orders coming out from all of the different states, critical infrastructure and security operations and security in general is still considered an essential part of doing business, which I think is great. The recognition that we're getting from a cyber perspective of, hey, we still need to keep the lights on, especially as you decided to move your entire workforce remote, introduces a lot of other challenges there. So I think, security will still, maybe not, to the levels that we see in Q3 and Q4 out there. I think we'll see a dip in Q2 and Q3. But I think it'll definitely level itself out. So if you hang in there for a little while and expect, as you mentioned from Sequoia, we use Sequoia very heavily, 20-30% reduction. If you can weather that storm for a little bit, it should bounce back. I would say probably Q3 or Q4 for most of security. I'm not saying as an entire industry, I'm just saying just in security itself, because those budgets will be there. Security's budgets usually doesn't get cut very, very extensively unless, there's some major catastrophic problems within the company. The times for fighting for budgets are still there, but for the most part, most companies recognize in order to do business, especially in IT, you need security as part of that. I think we'll still continue to see that growth occur in the security space, maybe outside of other industry verticals.
My big fear is that we always see a dip around now, right? For the number of sales calls coming in because of spring break and Easter and everything. There's always these cyclical patterns that exist. And I'm part of my fear is that it does pull back a little bit in Q2. And then we get to Q3 and Q4, which are always insane, and it explodes even more.
Yeah.
And there's just not capacity to handle.
That's a good point.
So this is, so we kind of co-opted this on the Red Team side. Keith, what do you think on kind of like from Red Canary perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of tried to compartmentalize it in a few ways. I think, back to the original question, I mean, the first thing was like, what's the right thing to do for employees? Because if we don't do the right thing for them, everything else kind of doesn't matter, right? Like we will fail for we'll fail for customers, and we'll fail for everyone else. And so that was definitely that was job one. The business impact of it's really interesting. We focused a ton up front and just a lot of the mechanics of getting, effectively for us, it's like half the company going remote, right? And so it was funny. I was as you all were talking, right? I mean, I think most of our companies are built to be remote or can be remote just because we're technical people. And so even if we're not already, Dave, what you're talking about, the lift for you all to decide that you're going to build remote infrastructure is nothing compared to
2 days
organization, right?
Yeah.
It's not nimble. And so even still just focus, even forgetting about the business side of it, I think even, just on the employee side, kind of like you said, it's too soon to tell in some ways for business, right? I think it's too soon to tell even for us, what the just straight up productivity impact is yes, we got employees out of the office. We still have no idea. You kind of have some idea, but it's really hard to tell at an aggregate level. Is everybody in the company in a good place? Can everyone do their job under these circumstances? Because it's super easy to say, hey, we built all of our infrastructure. We were a company built to go remote. So we sent everyone home, no big deal. But working at home, working remote is not the same as working at home with your wife and kids and your family, partners, significant others, roommates, right? It's even those stresses alone have just been it's been super interesting. Everyone's handled it really well. We've definitely had a crushing influx of cat, dog, pet pictures. We've had lots of kid cameos on Zoom calls at interesting times. So even that even that first part, which to all of us seems simple, which is just tell everyone to go home. I feel like there's we're still looking for leading indicators there of just how well everyone's doing, not just with their job, but are people okay under these circumstances, right? When you just
and kind of springboard on that, there's kind of this thing, and I've talked to a number of you about it already. We all know really amazing people, but as soon as they start working from home, for whatever reason, they just stop working. And I've been through long conversations with Bryson about this and Dave about this, and I think that a lot of companies are going to hit that point where you're going to have somebody that's amazing in the office, but as soon as they have guitars and video games and Netflix at their fingertips constantly, their ability to actually function starts to go away.
I mean, the last thing I'll say, because Sean hasn't got to speak up yet, is
he's so patient. He's so nice.
I'm listening and learning too.
So it's super it's interesting, right? You think about we have our engineering team, right? Most of them prefer not to be in office because it's very distracting, right? And so therefore, they all work really productively from home, where it's nice and quiet, and they have their space and they have their routine. And I'm generalizing here. This is not specific to just that team, but yeah, to your point, John, that's it's easy to say like they're still working from home. They were working from home 2 weeks ago and they're working from home now, but like the home circumstance for a lot of people now is precisely the thing that they like
Very
were
tough.
home to avoid just a few weeks ago. And that they, I mean, if people, not everyone responds to that in the same way, and like it's not their fault. You can't fix it. And so, you know, it might be weeks or months before we like really start to figure out
Yeah.
where the hotspots are. You know, the bigger the business, the harder that is to figure out like over time.
So, Sean, bouncing off of that, I know, you know, for most of these companies, you know, for Dave and John and Red Canary, like they're, as far as the boutique shops go, you guys have like a good fair amount of people that work for you, right? Like Dave, you have how many?
Over 200.
200. John, how many do you have?
With everybody that we write checks to, about 98.
98. Keith, how many do you have?
Yeah, we're just under 200 or so.
200.
Yeah.
Bryson, you're still pretty small, right?
We're like, well, Scythe is like 20. Grim is like 60 or 70.
Cool. And so, Sean, how many do you have at Trimark?
We're under 10. So we're
Really?
Yeah, I would love to have a war chest like Dave. You know,
Yeah.
certainly the goal is always 6 months to a year, and that's what we're always striving for is 6 months plus. And I mean, as far as when we've been looking at this, I've been looking at it since the beginning of March or a little bit before that, trying to make sure that things were lined up. Definitely very concerned in the past week or so when sales calls and business development type things just kind of dropped out. And then contracts that looked like they were moving forward kind of stalled because people are scrambling, trying to figure things out. But we've had some positive indicators, and just in the past few days, which has been nice. We were able to convert a travel engagement to a remote engagement when they were very concerned about having us on site, because part of the benefit of what we do is that we're consultants and we do security stuff. So I make sure that I hire people that have operational experience and they have the security vision. So oftentimes when we get on site, they'll ask us questions about, hey, this is what we've been doing. This is what we're looking to do. Does that make sense? Or what are the challenges we're going to see if we start changing this part of what we've been doing? So we've been working hard with our customers to make sure that they understand that even if we're not on site, that we're still going to be doing calls, video calls, or even set them up with a collaboration environment where they can ping the team whenever they need to, pretty much. And then on the other side is making sure that our employees are okay. And that's been one of my concerns, because this is not a normal work from home type situation at all. So I've told everyone every time I talk to the team, look, if you need to take a break, take a break. If it's not working for you for the day, just stop for the day. Like, do what you need to do self-care, because this is not a normal situation. And everyone's stressed. And if you're just not feeling it, you're not feeling it. Come back to it later when you feel like you are. And from the Trimark perspective, I mean, we had a Fortune 50 company reach out to us in the past couple of weeks about, okay, we have X number of new dozens of thousands of people that need to work from home now. And how can we do this securely? How can we leverage the cloud for this? We've got a lot of customers that have reached out to us about like the Microsoft Cloud or Office 365, or what does this mean? How can we do this in a way that makes sense and doesn't open us up to a ton of issues? So it's been interesting, because from the perspective of our traditional customers, which have been Active Directory security assessments, which are not really a red team engagement, have been shifting more towards the consulting side of, hey, we want to empower all our users, all our employees, to make sure that they can connect in and do their work from home, but we're concerned about the security angle of that. And just from the sheer number of, when you have 20,000 people that are working from home and you're a 100,000 person company, that's a bit different than when you drop in another 70,000 people or 60,000 people on top of that.
That's super interesting, man. Like the question comes up about being nimble, right? I mean, like effectively all of our customers are like, they're all being nimble, not necessarily by choice, right? And if like for businesses that are if you're in a position to anytime you're in a position to like help solve customers' problems, that's a great thing, right? And like being in a position as a business where you can get behind that, be like, all right, sweet. Like it's not what we were doing last week, but it's what people need. And like, you're obviously super capable, right? Like that's awesome, man. I mean,
isn't that kind of the nature of what we've done? I mean, for the last 20 years at least, where it seems like every single week it's some new thing in security, and it seems like we always adapt and we always seem to be changing constantly. So maybe as an industry we're a little bit better mentally prepped for this. I don't know.
So the one thing that's really stuck out to me in all the answers that all of you just gave is that one of the primary concerns, if not the primary concern, was for your people. I didn't
100%.
hear a single one of you like lead off with profits or this or that. It was, are your people okay? Like there was a great point in the chat from Craven. He said, I think that there's a problem that a lot of people who are suddenly working from home, just because you can work from home doesn't mean it's a true work from home setup, right? Like all of us have worked from home for a long time. I have a nice giant big room and I've set it up over the course of like 8 years and everything is cool. But now you have people just sitting on a laptop on whatever spare chair that they have, and that's stressful in and of itself. Like it's hard to concentrate like that. So I'm curious, from somebody who doesn't run a business but sees all of the headlines and has given his fair share of snark about places like GameStop, from five guys who are who are very concerned about their people. What's your first reaction when you see a place? Not to pile on to like talk shit on people, but kind of a dick move. Of a company that will stay open, calling themselves critical retail, and putting, to my mind, putting people in harm's way. Is my reaction overstated, or are there considerations there that I'm not thinking about as a usual rank and file internet user just snarking on the internet?
I'm gonna say, as a business owner, the fear is real. Whenever we took $100,000 hit to go virtual right before all of this happened, that's $100,000 that I could have been paying people salaries. And that fear is real. So while I disagree with what those people are doing, and I understand it, I don't think that we can always say, well, it's just greed. Because no, for a lot of them, they're actually operating out of a place of survival. And while I disagree, I at least understand.
I think all of us are trying to figure out ways to handle this situation in different mindsets. For me, I disagree with non-essential ones. I want to give a shout out, by the way, to all the caregivers, nurses. I mean, everybody else out there. I went into Drug Mart the other day, and there's people there, saying thank you so much. The greeters at the doors. People at the pharmacy taking taking money from people. I mean, those people are honestly truly the heroes out here that are honestly keeping the lights on for us, keeping food out there. I had to go get Erin's asthma prescription, because obviously we want to make sure she's stocked up on asthma prescriptions during this period of time, because she's susceptible to what's going on. And so I look at that and I say, okay, there's definitely a difference between essential and non-essential things, and everybody kind of has to do their part to distance ourselves from those one another's. But I do agree with John in the sense that everybody's freaking out right now, very heavily because of all this. I mean, this hasn't happened in my lifetime. It hasn't happened in my dad's lifetime. This is something that we are all kind of trying to figure out what the heck to do, that put a disruption on our way of life, and probably for the foreseeable future. And that's, people handle it differently. Don't agree with it. I think I think if you look at some of the stores that stayed open, that consider themselves essential businesses, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. But at the same time, I can kind of understand maybe rationale of thoughts of where they're coming from based off of that.
Right. And so, I mean, the other side of it is there's a lot of businesses out there that are operating at very slim margins. I mean, our margins that are like 5% or less. So the matter of them closing for a week or two, then they're looking at, okay, do we furlough our employees? Do we keep them on staff? Do we pay them? How do we do this? It's a complicated thing. And I concur with the panel here as far as, is it silly to then try to negotiate whether you're essential or non-essential? I agree that there's some clear-cut examples of what's essential versus non-essential, but there definitely are some business concerns from that perspective. So if you're at a 5% margin, you're shutting down for 2 weeks, and you have, 500 employees, well, you're probably looking at losing half of them or more. Another situation is, let's say you have a business with multiple locations, and you have some sort of skilled work, whatever that is. Can you pay them for that 2 weeks or 3 weeks or unknown period of time so that way, when you open up again, you can actually book appointments and have people come in and work with them. So there's a lot of industries that are like that, not just like hairstylists or beauticians or things like that, but across different industries. And so how do they handle that situation? I mean, I'm in Maryland, so Maryland governor just said today that all non-essential businesses have to shut down. And then there's the other aspect of that, which is insurance. So is COVID-19 an act of God, or is this something that is covered by insurance? That's going to be a question for the lawyers, realistically. But there's some really tough challenges out there, and it's across the board. And I think that there's a lot of difficult decisions that people have to make. And the businesses that shut down last week, as opposed to having to shut down this week, it's a tough decision, regardless of when you make that decision or when you make that call.
So for people that are operating at those thinnest of margins, is that a wise business decision that like is that a mistake? Should this have been, is that bad business, right? If you're operating at such a thin margin where, I mean, again, nobody saw this coming. We have movies in Hollywood and we've been conditioned to kind of be afraid of it. Ooh, boogeyman, but it's never going to happen. So nobody can see the scale of this coming, but shouldn't they have at least conducted themselves in such a way where they aren't so thin? And I'm speaking about larger business. Like, I'm not looking at some mom and pop shop that like has to run on a really thin margin or whatever. Is that a failure of a medium to large business of getting hit like this and not being prepared for it?
Not necessarily. I mean, if you look at grocery stores, I believe they operate at a 3 to 5% margin, for
Actually, it's
example.
lower.
But there you go, lower. So 2%, right? But there's other retail establishments where they have to carry inventory. So they have debt associated with their inventory, and then they've got to sell that somehow. Typical retailers are going to acquire a product for, I don't know, less than half of what they actually sell it for. So they might buy a shirt for $10 and then they try to sell it for $50 or $60 or $70. Not that they're necessarily going to see that because of couponing, but it's tough because there's certain industries where there are well-defined margins and you're not going to push above that.
Look at other industries like the the flights like United, Delta, everything else that's happening there. I mean, their whole business runs off of very small margins as well. I mean, you have the fuel costs, the maintenance, the insane costs for the actual planes themselves. They run at a very low margin. They've historically had problems with profit, actually growing and things like that. So I mean, these types of bumps where you have a hiccup like this. I mean, I don't think anybody expected this to happen, right? At this capacity and how fast it hit us all. It's kind of like a natural disaster. If a meteor hits the earth, and all of a sudden now, our life changes forever. It's kind of something like that occurred that, hasn't happened since 1918. So I think we were all kind of grossly unprepared, both how to handle the situation, to contain the situation, but also how to prepare for the situation. Hopefully companies take that into account in the future. But when you employ 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 people, and they're no longer able to make your product, I mean, that quickly destroys your company, regardless of your margins. You don't have the ability to afford that many people for being such a large organization.
I mean, maybe a theory, like I will theorize that not many people go into business aiming for low margins, right? So most of the folks, I think to your point, Dave, like most of the folks in those businesses are, they're not there because they want to be. They're there because they just don't have a choice, right? Like your margin will be your margin, and you just grow through scale, acquisition. Like you grow by doing more of it, right? I think the really hard question is whether for businesses that aren't operating on thin margins, that's where it gets to be like, that's where it's a harder decision. Right. And like there's just so many variables in play, right? You could have fantastic margins, but the only way you can possibly achieve like not just margins, but revenue is by having people in a physical place doing a thing. And so like, that's where it gets to be really hard. We've got plenty of customers that are a mix, right? Where they can absolutely send their corporate people home. But if the other half of the business that makes a widget, like isn't making widgets, none of it matters. And that's where it gets to be really tough, right? Like for us, it's like relatively clear cut because I think all of us kind of operate like there's a at least some unifying model behind everything that we do, even though like, even if the business like models themselves can be a little bit complex in the back end, but for us, it's pretty easy to just like optimize for keeping people healthy and happy and productive. Because if we can't do that first, again, like it's a cascading effect from there, right? Like everything else will fail eventually.
So you had touched on being able to send people home and working from different places, and that leads into a question that got from the chat from Angus Red. He says, in your collective opinions, do you think that after this passes, that companies, and he's probably, he or she, whoever that is probably asking about our industry specifically, right? The tech industry, the security industry. Do you think that after this passes, that companies that were previously against remote work will now see its benefits and its drawbacks and decide to consider more remote workers? Do you see that this having a change, or okay, now this is over, everybody get back, and now we see no value to remote work?
Yeah, everybody's gonna go back to work the normal way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're never going back to that. Like normal has changed. I don't know what normal is going to be, but I don't think we're ever going back to the way things used to be.
I have a little bit more of an optimistic view. I look at this as being more so of a point in time. I'd say, after 18 months or so, vaccines are out, things are getting back to normal. I say that things will be generally the same way as they were before. And I think that companies will go back to what they used to do, both on site and kind of their own traditional ways of handling things, as well as maybe a blend of both. But I do think positively things will get better.
See, I hate to say it, but mine was positive. Like I think people working from home and having that ability, I think is good. I didn't mean like, this is it. This is the new normal.
Oh, gotcha.
We're all going to
Okay.
panic.
I thought you were like
Vegas.
world here.
Fight,
No. I just meant from the perspective. I do think that you're going to have a significant percentage of the workforce from here on out is going to be working from home, either completely or like some type of schedule: 3 days in an office, 2 days in an office, 3 days from home.
I hope that's the way it goes. I honestly think that's a great thing. I think companies will tend to go back to their normal way of operating, though, when things are kind of quasi back to normal. I mean, look at manufacturing companies. They're not going to change, their imprint. They've been around for 100, 200, 300 years. They're not going to change the way that they've kind of operated past. I think newer companies, especially technology integrated ones, absolutely, hopefully that's something. And it cuts down on cost. I mean, to me, remote workforce has always been a phenomenal thing, and I hope more people do it.
I agree with John. I think that this is going to be a tipping point to a lot more remote work. Obviously, there are plenty of jobs where you still can't do that, service industry, manufacturing being examples, but that the psychology of the boss who's like, you need to be here, butts in seats, so I can see you 9 to 5, and that's how I measure your productivity. This is going to force corporations to go, wait a second, like the infrastructure's there, why are we paying for this? Now, they already have assets and leases and contracts that have forced them to a certain amount of expenditure. So there is a sunk cost, but I think they're going to reevaluate this on the back end. And actually going back, Danny, to your earlier question, I think the fundamental shift that happened was in the 1980s at the macro level, where companies started to be penalized for having cash. Cash was not a good thing. Now we're talking large companies, right? So if you take Dave's company and multiply it by 10,000, that's a bad thing, right? An entrepreneur who says we need to have a year of payroll at that level, his board would take him over the coals or her over the coals. Mm-hmm. You don't do that.
Yep.
Cash is a liability. You need to put cash in play, which is why I think it was John who was talking about acquisitions and mergers. You want to leverage debt because money is so cheap. The capital markets since the 1980s have allowed us access to be able to borrow money. So why not go in hawk? If you're only looking at growth and optimism and what your board wants and what you want to return to your shareholders, which is the other part, is how much we've seen in stock buybacks and dividends to shareholders. Well, that's money that was not invested in the employees and was not invested in the company being able to survive black swan events like a pandemic. Mm-hmm. So if you start looking at all of this, I think business is going to fundamentally change. I don't think we're going to see, because it's not like since, if you remember, 2008 was a huge depression and a whole bunch of very strict financial rules came down from the US government that said, we're going to do this differently. And what has happened in the last few years? They've already started to dismantle them. They already said, you know what? We don't need those anymore because everything is okay, right? We start snapping back. So I think we're going to see that same kind of snap back after this crisis has passed. We're going to start to slide back to the way of business.
So I got a question. Like, I wonder, those of you who are like, I mean, like on boards, maybe you are the board, but you definitely like in every case have companies that are like governed by one, right? Or have customers who are governed by them. Like the thought exercise I keep going through is just like how I think like everyone's right in different ways. Like there will definitely be some companies that just snap right back. I think there will be there will be some that maybe decide to move aggressively in the direction of just keeping things the way that they are and just defaulting to working remote. I think it'll be super interesting to see what we're already definitely starting to like observe leading indicators of, which are like boards in particular and like company governance, like thinking about this stuff fundamentally differently, right? It's like there's like business continuity and like incident response, right? Which are things that we kind of all think about a lot in different ways. I think that's where the long tail of this gets really interesting is like everyone's trying to react right now. But if you go, you look a year out, assume this clears up in some number of months, and then you look a year past that, I think that's going to be like this super interesting case study to look back on is like, did boards respond to this next year by going to businesses and saying like, not just remote versus local, but just there's some huge benefits to remote work that aren't just being able to send everybody in San Francisco to their home in San Francisco. It's not having everyone be in San Francisco in the first place. Like geographic dispersion of workforce and things like that. Like those are all super interesting. Like those are kind of like big long tail, like macro impacts. But I mean, if I'm on the board of a big company, that's the scale you're thinking at, right? Like how do we move a meaningful percentage of our workforce? Like not just put them in a position when they can go home and do their job, but like, how do we put them in a position where if something happens in country A, B, and C, like it's just like, it's diversification, right? Just in a very different way.
And this is testing it literally everywhere right now. So.
Yeah, and the companies that I've spoken with in the past couple of weeks about spinning up this infrastructure to support a large number of work from home users that have not been there before, pretty much to a person have said, yeah, we don't expect this to go away. Like this infrastructure, what we're spinning up, we're going to be leveraging this for the next several years. So we want to make sure we get it right, or at least we have an idea of what the risks are with that. And then associated with that on the human side is there are no metrics that you can use today to go, okay, work from home was successful or not because of this level of productivity, because this is not a normal situation. So any manager that's looking at this time now and go, oh, well, that was kind of a work from home pilot, they're wrong, and they shouldn't look at it that way.
So no, go ahead.
I was going to ask a real quick business question because I'm super fascinated by this. So like we've talked a ton about people and obviously like some about business, but I think for all of us, it was like, are our people in a good place first? And then, figure out and start to figure out the impacts of the business. Like quite literally, we've been thinking about the impact of the business at Red Canary since like day zero of this, but it wasn't until this week that we really started to dig in and start to figure out, all right, like what are the metrics that like we should be looking at? What are those leading indicators, right? And like Chris on our team started to pull together some of the stuff just to understand, like what activities across the teams are like gaining velocity, staying the same, which have kind of like tanked, and it's really interesting to think that like depending on like the length of your sales cycle and things like that, like some types of businesses, like you're not going to be able to figure out what the financial impact of this is until it's kind of too late, right? And so what we've been trying to figure out is like, what do you, if you subscribe to the view that like you're not really going to know like what the long-term impact is on like people's willingness to buy, just how long it takes to buy things because they're slowed down just in very natural ways. What have you all done in terms of like spending, hiring, things like that? Like have you course corrected? Like is it wait and see? Like are there metrics that you're able to look at now that like give you some confidence you have some like you can look 6 or 9 months out and figure out where you're going to be?
We're just wait and see on hiring. I would love to hire, but I do not think it would be at all prudent at this juncture.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat of just like taking a look at what's going on. We've only been in this for what, 2 weeks really. And so, you look at this, and if it's going to go in a few months, what does that look like? How do things slow down? I think for us, hiring is kind of on a standstill until we kind of know what's kind of happening out there for right now. I think the market will rebound. I think it'll take some time, but at the same time, we don't know how bad this is going to get or how long it's going to take. So I think right now for us, it's just kind of making sure that, our company doesn't, our employees don't have anything to worry about, try to take care of them and make sure that the company stays as healthy as possible during those times.
So, Graham, we actually, we see it differently because we also have a war chest like Dave does, and we see this as an opportunity because there are going to be places where we've already seen folks furloughed in government. And we know that some of the smaller companies are going to have a hard time. So we are looking in April and May to pick up some folks because we have the ability to weather the storm for a period of time. And we have that strong pipeline of work. So I know that sucks, but we can and we will.
Yeah. What would you guys say to, and I've seen this both work out and completely backfire. People who were looking to make a job change, got offer letters, gave their notices, and then all of a sudden their new employer is like ghosting them, right? Now they don't have a job. Now it's closed. Now it's rescinded.
I can't imagine doing that. That's shady.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Agree.
Yeah.
That.
Like should people who are even think about looking for a new gig because they're unhappy or whatever, put that on pause for now? Like is that, I mean, and again, that's like personally quantifying risk for each individual person. So it's a broad question, but
yeah, don't put it on pause. I mean, you should be, out blogging. You should be doing things like Twitch streams. You should be doing videos. You should be getting out, meeting people, because like I said at the beginning of the show, I believe that once we get into Q3, Q4, it's going to be not just an explosion like it normally is, but it's going to be a catastrophic explosion. And there's going to be a number of great firms that are sitting on resumes. Like right now, I'm sitting on 4 resumes that I hope to God Dave Kennedy does not find. And I desperately want to hire these people.
Name start with? No, I was kidding.
No, we're not doing that again. But
again, he said again.
Oh, there's a story.
You and Timidine. Tim's like, I'm talking with this guy. I'm like, son of a bitch. He's talking with me. But
hey, Tim's only 5 people. Come on.
Yeah. But I if you're out there, start looking, start talking with people, keep having the conversations, because when this blows over, and it will, all of us are going to be scrambling for good talent.
Yeah, agree 100%.
I got 2 more questions before I put my little one to bed. There was one in the chat that I wanted to get to.
I saw the universal shush when you came in. When you walked in, you kind of you make eye contact and you kind of flick them off like this. You're like, go.
He was
exactly what we all do when we're on meetings. Nice job.
And I don't even know what happened, man. He's like, can I get your phone? And for some reason, I'm like, yes. And I unlocked it. And he was gone for 15 minutes.
Social engineering.
They're like,
$700 later.
Yeah.
And they're like, Dad, can I have your credit card?
I have no idea what he posted. And he's 4.5, and he probably posted something.
I don't know if you know, but you've been tweeting pretty actively for the last.
Oh yeah, let's
awesome.
see. What is
broken English, but
tweeting?
It's amazing.
Well, no, and we had talked about earlier about like kids coming in and stuff. This little mongrel comes in the meeting of a leadership meeting, a Zoom, just hanging brain, no pants on, just hey man, what's up? And he almost kind of like right here in the camera. I was like, fucking no, that's several laws I'm sure I'm breaking. So can you please fucking not do that? But anyway, yeah, he's like, look at my penis. Miss Slaughter in the chat, and this is one of the last questions I want to get to in the chat for Hacking Dave, but it could be really for any of you. She says, first of all, Ute, I don't know what that Y-U-T. Oh, fuck that.
Ute.
Yacht is a marine term. Yacht.
Oh.
Yeah.
First of all, Yacht. Second,
Marines.
The best.
Okay, just better PR, man. You're the Army with better PR.
She said, second, what's changed for a SOC with a mostly work from home client base, if anything?
That's a great question, and Keith can probably comment on that a lot too. From our side, our shifts changed. We actually went down to shorter shifts themselves, and we spread them out over a larger period of time. That's we used to do 12 hours on, 12 hours off, but 4 days on, 4 days off, basically. So you get like half the year off, which people really liked that a lot. And so we decided to go 8 hours instead. So we're shifting 8 hours now for all of those, and people have really responded back to that. Interesting enough, we got a complaint our first day, which was at home I don't get free Monster drinks, which I thought was
Ooh.
funny.
So are you shipping Monster drinks to your employees?
That's a good idea. That's a great idea. We have them in the office.
I'm doing that as of now.
Awesome.
That's a great idea.
How do you get them there?
Because Sean, we got to keep up with the trusted sec binary gap.
Yeah, exactly.
This is an escalation, man.
Yeah, exactly.
We gotta
Amazon
escalate.
gift cards. Here you go, guys. Enjoy, everyone.
But I mean, I think for us, making sure that all the systems were integrated properly. We had a couple of integrations that weren't working so well with the new laptops. So it was just a matter of getting everything kind of working out the first few kinks, the first couple of days. But we really, without a major issue, it's been fine. It's actually been really well received and receptive from folks. I think a lot of folks do want to come in and work, and I think, from my personal perspective, when this is over, since we already went through the hurdles, might as well make it more of an optional piece. If you want to come into the office, come on in. If you want to stay remote, go for it. I think we're kind of fine with all of the above. But for us, technical wise, we really didn't have any major issues. It was pretty seamless to get everybody into there. Getting all the laptops ordered well ahead of time because everybody was stationary desktops was kind of interesting to make sure that we had the timing for that. Everything configured, kind of all hands getting it configured. And then the communication has been really key. What the SOCs really like to do is having an open Zoom meeting with everybody there so they can mute and everything else. And so they kind of work and collaborate back and forth as they would if they were in person. So it's worked out really well for us, just having open Zoom meetings and then the collaboration that continues. It's been really surprisingly without any type of hindrance. And that's a kudos to the team over at BD. I think they did a great job.
One final question for all of you. Talk a lot about the business side and margins and all kinds of shit. How do each of you how do you unwind right now, and how do you stay focused when not only because you're just like any one of these people in chat, you're just like me and the thousands of people in our industry, just regular people, just trying to deal mentally with all of this shit, and that's hard enough as it is. I have to get up and forcibly go take a shower. So how are you each dealing with that to start with, the baseline that everybody has right now, plus running a company? How do you do it? Play video games? Do you work out? Bryson, you've got something planned, right? Like a group workout or something?
Yep, tomorrow morning at 9:00.
It's too early for me, but okay.
You're not up at 8:00 your time?
I'm up at 8 a.m. my time. I am.
Fucking Marines.
Sometimes it's like 8:30.
Okay, well, 9:00 Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. I'm going to be leading the first in a series of workouts. So if I can get out of bed, I'm looking at you, Dave. You can get out of bed. There you go. I'm pointing right at you. See that? E.T. I pretty much, I've poured myself into cooking and doing this whole virtual thing. So I'm hosting virtual happy hours with select groups of folks. I'm doing the open to everybody PT. If you go to my Twitter account, Bryson Bort, I have signups for the happy hours. I've been doing a ridiculous amount of cooking. So it's just me and my teenage daughter at home. She is less than enthusiastic about all of Dad's cooking all the time. But you know what? Sucks to be you. No dessert. Eat it. And I'll see you tomorrow morning, Dave.
If I'm up.
I'll wake you up. I'll find you.
I think for me, it's also been having a regiment of things that I do. I try to take the kids every day out to the park and do a walk. We did 3.5 miles the other day, which is still good for social distancing, by the way. I'm not breaking any rules. We go to the park because it doesn't have anybody around. I also work out every single day. I invested in a system called the Tonal system, which is kind of like a Peloton, but for weightlifting. Goes into your wall and has weight resistance and everything, and you have a personal trainer.
Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt. I thought you got like a product placement from the Shake Weight.
That's going into a meme.
I still have
Shake
my
it.
shake weight on my bookcase.
I'm better with my right arm than my left. I don't know why. It's-
Did you ever see the Family Guy episode where Quagmire discovers pornography and then he comes out like
A massive
his
right,
arms.
He's like,
his one arm is like massively bulging and his other one's like completely frail. So, sorry. Anyways,
hold up your arms.
yeah, mine are normal.
I don't know. That circumference looks a little off.
Working out every single day has been big. I also play video games. I got all my friends from Trusted Tech and Binary. We all actually play video games together at night. Play with a couple customers, couple friends. That's been fun. But for me, it's been routines, helping the kids with math homework. Doing stuff that kind of keeps me in sync. I've been cooking every single day. My kids actually cooked goulash today. They decided they wanted to cook today, and they've been making desserts too for us at night. So each day we get to try something that's horrible. It has peanut butter and fruit roll-ups in it. But it's been fun with that, and we're all kind of weathering the storm together. But routine is important. Getting out of the house is also important. Distancing yourself, but getting out of the house.
Sean?
We have a farm, so I have cows, pigs, chickens, and like all kinds of critters to take care of. I'm setting up the studio over here. I'm going to start doing more recording. We have the cyber range that we give to all of our customers, and it correlates back to short videos that we release publicly for free. So there'll be a lot more videos coming out. Exercise is huge. Lots of mountain biking and exercising out on the porch with my daughter and my wife today was great. And I don't know. This is horrible to say, but there's part of me, like the silver lining is my daughter is going to go to college this summer, hopefully. And this is the last time that the band is all together. And I'm going to try to take as much advantage of this as I possibly can. And just try to enjoy being together for literally probably one last time as a family as we've been for the past 17 years.
Sean?
Yeah, figuring it out. I mean, I've just started organizing and cleaning stuff up around the house, and that's been it's burning off energy and doing something that's somewhat productive. Taking kids for walks and playing video games.
Keith?
Yeah, I've gone into I think on both sides what I've affectionately referred to as like lunar lander mode. So just trying to figure out for work and for home, like what are the things that we like are most important to do and try to focus on those. It has been super interesting. When you talk about, John, you talk about just, having everybody together and stuff like that. It's actually been super interesting to just like think back over the past couple of weeks at how we've kind of like balanced those two things at home. Like on the one hand, yeah, you're trying to make sure that the kids like wake up, like do something constructive, do something creative, like don't just like wallow away all day. Meanwhile, still try to get like a meaningful amount of work done. But I think, last week at nights, I mean, at 5 o'clock, it got cold in Denver last week. And so like snow started to fall. We kind of shut in a little bit. And we just decided to like kind of make an exception for an exceptional situation. And like we watched like, the entire Lord of the Rings extended edition. Like me and the kids just hunkered down in the basement, right? And like that was super fun too. Like not always going to have not always going to have this type, like this amount of time, like under these circumstances with them. So it's been, like I think equal parts, like trying to balance and like maintain some sense of normalcy, like in and out of work, but also like not try to pretend that everything's normal. Right. I mean, it's okay to just like do some weird shit and like break your routine, because like everyone's routine is pretty much destroyed or going to be reset over the course of the next few weeks. So.
I think that's a key point, is trying to find things that are unique and interesting that kind of are different than what the norm is. Like we did a bonfire with s'mores the other night, and the kids just love that. So finding something interesting and different. I think we're going to do a scavenger hunt with them around the house and outside. I think we're going to do a camp out where we set up tents and we act like we're camping. Just trying to find different ways to make things interesting, recognizing that this is unusual circumstance.
Yeah, and it's... I hate to leave the show on this note, and all great stuff, and I hope people can listen back to this and get some ideas from that. But it is public now that we lost one of our own this week. He was our friend John. human malware. He got into a car accident. So a lot of people have been hurting this week. And it's difficult to grieve like this. It's difficult to grieve with worrying about business and not being able to see people. So I hope people take it to heart of reaching out to people as they're doing this. Spin up your own live stream. I swear to God, anybody who wants to, I will spend however many hours they need and teach them how to do this stuff. If just to connect a little bit more. So yeah, for anybody who didn't hear, John is no longer with us. And that's one more hacker down that we don't have. So remember that. Stuff is weird now. So connect with your people. If you have good bosses, if you have a boss like Dave, Sean, Keith, John, or Bryson, make sure you tell them how much you appreciate them. If you love your job, keep going at it. If you don't, go find another one. Life's too short for that shit. But didn't want to leave it on a down note. But I want to thank all of you guys for being on. And now I'm all flustered about it. So, but yeah, thank all of you guys for being on. And hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
Later.
thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.
I want to actually add, I'm going to do this on the fly. Hold on. God damn it. I'm not good at adding stuff on the fly. I do just want to, I just want to put John's picture up because it's, yeah, anyway, this is going to be, I'll have to edit this later. Where the hell is it now? All right, this is awkward, so I'm not going to do that. But anyway, thank you, everybody. That didn't work out the way I wanted to. So thank you, everybody, for being on the show, and I will speak to you all again.
Hey, Will, yeah, I didn't know. I'm super sorry to hear his passing. Maybe if you can't find his picture, it would be appropriate to share what looks like was his last tweet, which is reminding everyone to wash their damn hands. So
yeah, nope, I got it. It is
maybe not slightly later, but appropriate note.
Yeah,
so.
Nope, it is coming on right now, and this is how I'm leaving it. Thanks, everybody.
All right, cheers.